Hi guys, my name is Faith, and I'm so very happy to be sharing this video with you today. You see, I've wanted to talk about this topic for such a very long time. You see, my mother is now elderly, and I wish with all my heart that someone would have taken the time to have sat me down and explained to me what was around the bend, what I needed to expect when my mother became elderly. You see, I'm an only child, and her care is completely my responsibility. Has it been difficult? Has it been challenging? It most certainly has. But it would have been made just that much easier if I knew what to expect. So I'm sharing this video for just one reason. I want to share with you just 5 things which I think you need to know before your mother, your father, or both parents become elderly, so that you will not be completely and utterly surprised like I was. So let's go. 1. Aging is a completely transformative process. No matter how strong or how fiercely independent your parent once was, aging is going to transform that. You will experience the changes in your parent physically, emotionally, or mentally, or all 3 at once. For example, my mother was physically strong. She could do anything physically. She remains today one of the strongest women I know. My father, her husband, died when I was just 3 months old. This meant that she was thrown quite suddenly into the role of taking care of me, a job, a house which sat on a very large property. Somehow she found the time to ensure that she sat on school board. She was extremely helpful to her church community, and all whilst ensuring that my education was on par. She was multitasking long before multitasking was a thing. So to see today the way aging has transformed her, it's really something to see. And it tells me that if it could happen to my mother, it can happen to any parent. 2, role reversal. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the term parenting your parent. And like many people, so did I. But it's really not until you find yourself in that position that you really and truly understand what it really means. Like I said, my mother was strong. She was very fiercely independent. She was in charge of every single aspect of her life, and she did it very well. So to see the transformation which has taken place overall, and to see that today she depends on me for her survival, again, that is something that it's challenging, and it is only when you go through it that you can completely understand what it feels like. But believe you me, it's real. And the truth is, regardless of how old we get, there's always going to be a child within us, especially given the challenges of life and how tough life gets. There's always going to be a part of us that really wants to climb into your mother's arms, your father's arms, to feel safe and secure. The reality is, their physical body will remain. But the truth is, in so many cases, they are not the person or the persons they once were. And that is something that you need to be emotionally prepared for. 3, we're speaking about emotions, and here we are. Emotionally, it is tough. It is easily one of the toughest things you will ever have to do, taking care of your parent and watching all the changes which they will have to undertake as the aging process progresses. The reality is, it's very hard on you, extremely hard on you. And especially if you have to experience them going through something like dementia, Alzheimer's, it is extremely, extremely hard on you. But just generally, all the changes, there's something in you, and there will always be something inside all of us that just wants our parent to remain the same. We don't want them to be changed. Even in my case, I can be honest and be frank with you. Even my mother's weaknesses, the things that I didn't like as a child, today, those are the very same things I miss, believe it or not. I can't begin to tell you how many times I have cried because nobody wants their parent really to change. And it's hard. It's tough. 4, caregiving takes everything out of you. The truth is, and nobody really tells you, but it is a full-time job. Let me repeat. Taking care of your mother, taking care of your father, your parents, it really is a full-time job. And if you love your parent, and especially if you have, well, worked your issues out with your parent, which means that you're emotionally free, because let's face it, some of us have real issues with our parents. But the truth is, if you have really worked those issues out and forgiven them for whatever wrong they may have done to you, and as I said, you're emotionally free, you really are postured to want to give them your very best, your all. And especially if you have a type A personality, like I do, then you are going to want to ensure that everything is consistently done right. This can be emotionally, physically, and intellectually draining. Now, if you have never walked this road before, you may be asking the question, why is caregiving so demanding? And I want to give you some practical examples so that you will be prepared for some of the realities of taking care of an aging parent. So, your parent may have mobility issues. And if they have mobility issues, then their safety becomes your number one concern. So you may want to ensure that you take care of their personal needs. And let's get real, that might include taking them to the bathroom and ensuring that they have a good bath. That can be physically demanding. Another area which will likely fall under your responsibility is simply that you may be responsible for the provision of all their meals. That means breakfast, lunch, dinner. If they have to take supplements in between, that also, let me tell you, can be a full-time job. The other one is medical needs. You may be responsible for purchasing as well as administering all their medication. This takes me to the other thing, which is taking them to all their doctor's visits. If they need to have procedures, like the other day, my mother had to have a steroid shot in her knee because she has mobility issues, or whatever other medical procedures that they have to have, you are responsible. Also, if you're like me, remember I said I do have a type A personality, you want to ensure that you're on top of all of their health needs. So it's not uncommon to find me 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning emailing my mother's doctor because during the day I noticed something which I hadn't seen before. So I need to email him to find out, what is this? Is this something that I need to be concerned about? Is it something that I need to rush her to the doctor, to you tomorrow morning? What is it? Things like that. Nobody tells you, but it happens. The other thing is that if you live with your parent, which is a real possibility, for example, I lived on my own, but when my mother began to age and I began to see the changes that aging brought, it was a very tough decision. Another thing nobody tells you about, but you may have to move back in with your parent, especially if there's nobody else to take care of your father or your mother. So I made that very tough decision to move back in to ensure that she had my complete help and support and care. And it means, though, that if I'm not there with her, somebody else who I trust, somebody who is responsible, and by the way, good caregiving services are not necessarily the easiest to find. But you have to ensure that when you are not around, someone is going to be there acting on your behalf, because I'm telling you, regardless of wherever you are, you will not have that peace if you think that your parent is not being cared for, not being protected or taken care of. And the truth is, nobody's going to do it just like you, but you want to find somebody, you really want to identify somebody who will come just as close as possible to you. And this goes for even errands, because the truth is, depending on where your parent is, you may have to ensure that that person who you have secured to be with them is always around when you're not. You may also have to ensure that your parent is physically, mentally, and emotionally engaged. Again, this is something no one tells you about, but believe you me, it's real. Remember, aging in and of itself is a very isolating period. It can be, rather, a very isolating period in one's life. And unfortunately, in many countries, in many cultures, people who have gotten to the age of 75, 80, 90 and beyond are not necessarily everyone's number one priorities. They tend to be forgotten, and it's hard. Add to that the fact that so many of their counterparts, like in my mother's case, quite frankly, have died. Many of the people that my mother would pick up the phone and call, who she used to work with or go to church with or just socialize with or live in our neighborhood, have now died. So it can be a very lonely period. So the responsibility now falls on me to ensure that she's still emotionally engaged. So what does that mean? Does it mean taking her out for a drive? Yes, it does. Does it mean ensuring that we're talking, ensuring that I disconnect from social media? I sit, we have a meal together, we can talk about things, even though sometimes she talks about the same things over and over and over, the same stories. You have to be present, and you have to ensure that you're engaging her. Ask probing questions so that mentally she keeps alert. It also means, in my case, I'm very selective in even the very television programs that she watches. She likes to watch, for example, discovery programs, where there's crime and somebody solving a murder and things like that. That keeps her engaged. That's what keeps her engaged. So I try to find programs. She likes sports. She likes things that will make her laugh. So I ensure that she's always engaged in that way. Add to that, you want to ensure that she's physically, or your parent is physically engaged. In my mother's case, that may mean getting a physiotherapist, or it might mean taking her somewhere where she can get an opportunity to walk and to exercise. So those are some of the things that nobody tells you about. And the truth is, as more and more of us have children later and later on in life, this is going to be normal. This is going to be what is commonplace in today's world, especially as I said, more and more people have children later on in life. Like my mother had me later on in life. She had me in her late 40s. So that is the reality. Now, with everything I've just shared with you, all the work that is involved in taking care of my elderly parent, my mother, in this particular case, you may ask me the question, is it worth it? And the answer is 100% yes. You see, like any other parent, there are fewer feelings which make you feel contented and are as rewarding as knowing that your parent is healthy, happy, feels protected, and is cared for in the very same way they cared for you. So, I hope that these 5 things which I've just shared with you will be beneficial, so that before your own parent becomes elderly, you are completely prepared. Thanks for watching.